The room was silent, too silent. Seconds earlier, Diddy sat upright, his defense attorney mid-objection, the air charged with tension. Then it happened. The mogul's body tensed, eyes widened, and in a blink, he crumpled forward. Gasps erupted. One juror stood instinctively. The judge banged the gavel, calling for order that wouldn't come. EMTs rushed in. Outside, cameras rolled as breaking alerts hit phones across the country. Sean Diddy Combs collapses in court amid shocking forensic revelation. This wasn't a headline from a TMZ tabloid frenzy. This was day 5 of a federal courtroom battle between one of hip-hop's most powerful figures and singer Cassie Ventura, his former partner. What had begun as a civil case alleging abuse had evolved into something bigger, something darker. And the trigger? A sealed forensic report that, when opened, flipped the entire case on its head. Not just allegations anymore. Not speculation. Evidence. Real, time-stamped, scientifically validated evidence. Audio. Surveillance. Material traces. And it was damning. The collapse wasn't a stunt. A court physician later confirmed it. Vasovagal syncope, a fainting response caused by intense psychological distress. But it wasn't just Diddy who felt the blow. His legal team froze. Journalists scrambled. The court recessed, but the moment had already detonated into the public consciousness. So, what was in that report? Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk you through everything that happened inside that courtroom on trial day 5. You'll hear about the forensic bombshell that left even the judge visibly shaken. You'll understand what led up to Diddy's collapse and what it means for the future of the trial. You'll hear testimony that had Cassie's legal team nodding grimly and Diddy's side rattled beyond repair. And by the end, you'll see why this isn't just a story about two celebrities battling in court. It's about power, truth, and the moment when decades of silence cracked wide open under the weight of undeniable evidence. Ready? Because once you hear what was revealed in that courtroom, there's no going back. To understand why day 5 of this trial felt like a cultural earthquake, we need to rewind. Because this isn't just about a courtroom incident. It's about two people, a history of power and silence, and the way the world is watching it all unfold. Let's start with the basics. Cassie Ventura, real name Cassandra Elizabeth Ventura, isn't new to the public eye. Singer, model, and actress, she burst onto the scene in the mid-2000s with her hit Me and You. Young, poised, and quickly signed to Diddy's Bad Boy Records, she was seen as a rising star. What the public didn't know then was that behind closed doors, her relationship with Diddy was becoming controlling, volatile, and, according to her lawsuit, deeply abusive. The legal complaint, filed late last year, didn't pull punches. It accused Diddy of years of coercion, physical violence, surveillance, and manipulation. She detailed a chilling pattern: isolation, threats, and moments of extreme control. What made it worse? The massive power imbalance. She was an artist. He was her boss, her partner, and one of the most powerful men in music. Diddy, of course, denied it all. Through his legal team, he painted the lawsuit as offensive and outrageous, part of a wider pattern of extortion attempts. He called the relationship complex but consensual. He doubled down in interviews, and many in the industry backed him. At first. Then the trial began. From day 1, it was clear this wasn't going to be a standard civil dispute. Cassie's legal team came in with strategy, evidence, and quiet confidence. Diddy's defense, meanwhile, worked to undermine her credibility, emphasizing gaps in timelines and the absence of physical evidence. That changed on trial day 5. The moment the forensic report was unsealed, the case shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't her word against his. There were time-stamped logs, surveillance data, and audio evidence suggesting not only that Diddy was at a disputed location, but that he had lied about it under oath. And just like that, the narrative cracked. Why does this matter? Because this case isn't happening in a vacuum. It's unfolding in a world where survivors of abuse, especially women in the entertainment industry, are still fighting to be believed. It's about one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop facing the kind of scrutiny he's largely avoided for decades. And now, finally, there's something more than accusations. There's evidence. It didn't feel like a normal court session. From the moment the courtroom doors opened that morning, something was off. The energy was tight, brittle. Journalists who'd been covering the trial all week noticed it immediately. Conversations were hushed, side eyes passed between attorneys, and a larger-than-usual number of media outlets had shown up early. A few legal observers muttered about something big going down. No one knew what. Not exactly. But the atmosphere was coiled. Diddy entered in a charcoal suit, flanked by his legal team. His posture was straight, eyes hidden behind tinted lenses. To an outsider, he might have looked calm, but those watching closely noted the small tells: clenched jaw, fingers tapping restlessly against his thigh, a stiffness in his walk. He was bracing for something. Across the room, Cassie sat with her team.
Calm. Head high.
No outbursts. No showmanship. Just focus. If she felt the tension in the room, she didn't show it. Judge Ramirez opened the session promptly. Day 5's docket included expert testimony from forensic analysts and a sealed evidence presentation. On the surface, nothing dramatic. But behind the bench, the judge looked more serious than usual. Less patient. It started slow. Legal housekeeping, objections, the usual rhythm of cross and redirect. Then, the court clerk rolled in a sealed file, marked with an evidence tag that hadn't been previewed during pretrial discovery. Diddy's attorneys whispered frantically. One of them actually stood and asked for a sidebar denied. The report was about to be opened. Prosecutor Marie Delgado rose and announced what everyone now remembers as the turning point. Your Honor, we are prepared to submit verified forensic analysis pertaining to digital audio, time-stamped video surveillance, and material trace evidence directly linked to the defendant. You could feel the shift. Reporters straightened in their seats. A member of Diddy's team reached into his briefcase with a shaky hand. One of the jurors leaned forward slightly, pen in hand, eyes locked on Delgado. And Diddy? He didn't move. Not at first. But according to a court sketch artist seated 5 rows back, he swallowed hard.
Once. Twice.
Then his eyes fixed on the large screen as Delgado prepared to display what would turn out to be the most explosive forensic evidence ever entered into this trial. Nobody knew it yet, but they were seconds away from the moment the room would implode. What was inside that folder changed everything. As Prosecutor Marie Delgado stepped forward, the courtroom dimmed. The lights lowered slightly to help display evidence on the wall-mounted monitor. The sealed forensic report, filed under protective order until that morning, was now fair game. A few pages thick, dense with technical language, it looked unremarkable. But its contents weren't. Delgado began with the audio recording. This clip, she explained, was obtained from a corrupted file on a device recovered by Cassie Ventura's legal team last year. It had been heavily edited and partially overwritten. But thanks to advanced forensic audio reconstruction, the same kind used in federal criminal investigations, the clip had been partially restored. Delgado hit play. The room went silent. The voice was grainy, distorted by digital compression and background interference. But it was unmistakably male and angry. A rant, punctuated with aggressive commands, vague threats, and one specific sentence. I told you not to come back here again. The prosecution paused the audio and brought in Dr. Eliza Morton, a court-approved forensic linguist and voice ID specialist. Her analysis? The voice had a 98.7% match with previous samples of Sean Combs' known speaking patterns. Given the phonetic alignment, cadence, vocal stress markers, and pitch profile, Dr. Morton said, this is functionally consistent with Mr. Combs. Diddy's lead attorney stood up, objected. The judge overruled. Next came the surveillance footage, the part that delivered a punch no one saw coming. Pulled from a now-closed boutique hotel in New York, the footage had been subpoenaed after new metadata surfaced in discovery. A USB backup, found on a forgotten server, showed time-stamped footage of Diddy entering the premises, a location he had previously claimed, under oath, he had never visited in that context. The clip was short. Diddy walks in, hoodie up, accompanied by 2 men. The timestamp, 3:14 a.m., the same night Cassie alleges a violent incident occurred. A murmur rippled across the courtroom. The prosecution wasn't finished. Delgado displayed stills, trace evidence analysis from that location, fabric fibers, hair samples, and a partial fingerprint lifted from a shattered lamp base. The fibers matched a jacket Diddy had been photographed wearing that same month. The fingerprint came back as inconclusive but not excluded, meaning it couldn't definitively prove Diddy touched the object, but it also couldn't rule him out. Then came the kicker. The hotel footage's metadata also included an autosaved security log, something overlooked in previous discovery. The digital system had recorded door entry logs via a motion-triggered badge system. It showed room access at 3:17 a.m. by a card associated with Combs' then security detail. This establishes not only presence, Delgado said, but movement, sequence, and possible concealment. It contradicts the defendant's sworn timeline. It aligns with Ms. Ventura's version of events. The courtroom didn't erupt, but it shuddered. Some jurors scribbled notes furiously. Diddy sat frozen. His legal team conferred in whispers, visibly shaken. What had started as a civil claim had, in that moment, shifted into something much heavier. No longer was it just testimony and credibility. Now it was data, cold, objective, time-stamped. And it wasn't over yet. The silence after the footage played was deafening. Sean Diddy Combs sat still, shoulders rigid, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked locked. For a man known for commanding stages and dominating boardrooms, he suddenly looked out of place, smaller somehow. His right hand trembled subtly on the table, just enough to notice. His lead attorney leaned in to whisper something, but Diddy didn't respond. Then, in the span of less than 10 seconds, everything spiraled. He blinked rapidly. His face paled. Then, without a sound, his head fell forward. His body slumped to the right and slammed against the armrest of his chair. Gasps tore through the gallery. A woman in the second row screamed. One juror half rose from her seat. The court reporter stopped typing mid-keystroke. "Mr. Combs," Judge Ramirez called out, standing halfway up. The courtroom deputy was already moving. Cassie's legal team stayed still, visibly stunned but calm. Security rushed forward, followed immediately by 2 court medical officers. The defense attorneys surrounded Diddy in a half-circle, shielding him as much from view as from contact. Within seconds, a call went out for EMTs. Judge Ramirez banged the gavel. "We are in recess. Everyone, please clear the room. Now." As EMTs arrived and wheeled in a stretcher, courtroom staff began ushering people out. Reporters sprinted for the hallway to get the story out. One of them, later speaking anonymously to the press, said, "It wasn't a performance. I've seen panic attacks. This was deeper." His face was like stone he just shut down. Outside, the courthouse steps became a media frenzy. Cameramen scrambled for positions. Social media exploded. #DiddyCollapse began trending within minutes. Inside, paramedics confirmed what many suspected. Vasovagal syncope, a fainting spell triggered by acute stress and a sudden drop in blood pressure. The bigger question wasn't what had just happened.
It was why.
Courtroom insiders speculated privately. Some said the weight of the evidence, especially the digital timeline and voice match, had hit him harder than expected. Others hinted at internal panic, an unraveling, now that the wall of denial was cracking. Regardless, one thing was now undeniable. Sean Combs had physically collapsed under the pressure of the facts laid bare in court. The trial was paused. But the damage, emotional, reputational, strategic, was already done. And the world was watching. If there was one thing that caught everyone off guard, it was the precision. This wasn't just a matter of pulling blurry video clips from a half-functioning security camera or cleaning up a shaky phone recording. What the prosecution unveiled on day 5 was a tightly orchestrated sequence of technological evidence, methodically collected and verified, the kind of case-building normally seen in high-profile criminal investigations. Let's break it down. First, the voice analysis. The distorted audio sample, retrieved from a corrupted device, should have been a dead end. But prosecutors brought in Dr. Eliza Morton, a specialist in forensic phonetics and digital audio reconstruction, to bring the voice back to life. She used multiband spectral analysis, a technique that maps vocal frequencies and harmonics, then compares them to known samples. The prosecution submitted multiple authenticated recordings of Diddy speaking, interviews, phone calls, and depositions. Dr. Morton ran those against the distorted clip using automated voice recognition software as well as manual analysis. The result, a 98.7% vocal match. Legally, that's near certainty. But the prosecution didn't stop at the audio. Second, digital footprints and surveillance metadata. In court, Assistant DA Delgado explained how the hotel footage had been discovered. Months earlier, a subpoena had turned up no usable video, but a redundant off-site server backup, found by a private investigator working with Cassie's team, held older logs that hadn't been wiped. These backups contain not just video but the raw metadata, including exact timestamps, file hashes, and system logs that verified authenticity. The footage showed Diddy entering a hotel where he had claimed, under oath, he hadn't been. But metadata went even further. It placed him within a very specific window, between 3:14 and 3:19 a.m., at the exact site of the alleged incident. That precision left little room for denial. Third, material trace evidence. This is where things got physical. Recovered from the hotel suite in question were fragments of a shattered lamp base. Prosecutors sent those fragments to a private lab for analysis. Using SEM, scanning electron microscopy, and fiber spectrography, technicians identified trace fibers that matched the lining of a designer coat Diddy had been photographed wearing that month. Was that conclusive on its own?
No.
But it painted a picture. Then came the partial fingerprint, found beneath a piece of cracked glass on the same lamp. The print wasn't full enough to serve as a match, but according to the technician who testified, it could not be excluded as belonging to Mr. Combs. When combined with the time-stamped entry logs and surveillance footage, it bolstered the idea that he was there, he touched something, and his version of events didn't add up. And finally, the chain of custody. Defense attorneys tried to suggest that the footage and materials could have been manipulated, planted, or misrepresented. But the prosecution anticipated that. Every piece of evidence came with a detailed chain of custody, a step-by-step ledger of who collected it, who processed it, and when. A technician from the New York State Digital Evidence Unit testified. The data logs, security hash verification, and access logs confirm no manipulation after initial retrieval. This data is clean. Why does this all matter? Because in abuse cases, especially those involving high-profile, powerful individuals, hard evidence is rare. Allegations are often dismissed as he said, she said. What Cassie's team managed to do was bridge the gap between personal testimony and empirical verification. They brought in science,
Time,
physics, voice frequency, fiber density. They brought the cold, mechanical truth into a story that had long been dismissed as just personal drama. And in doing so, they didn't just support Cassie's story. They stripped away the illusion that this case was about credibility alone. It wasn't anymore. It was about proof. Evidence can tell a story, but it's the witnesses who make it breathe. After the forensic presentation stunned the courtroom, the prosecution didn't pause. They pushed forward, using testimony to layer emotion, context, and credibility over the hard data already on the record. This wasn't just about showing that Diddy was somewhere he said he wasn't. It was about proving why he was there and what happened when he was. The first witness was Detective Raul Harmon, a cybercrime investigator who walked the jury through how digital surveillance data is verified. His calm demeanor gave the evidence a backbone. Using plain language, he explained metadata timestamps, server logs, and security clearance codes, making complex information understandable. When asked how confident he was in the video's authenticity, his reply was blunt. There's no tampering. The footage is intact. The metadata matches the timeline exactly. Then came Latasha Green, the hotel's former night manager. She'd worked there for over 8 years and remembered the night in question. Her records from that date had been subpoenaed, but her memory was just as sharp. I remember because of who it was, she testified. You don't forget someone like that walking in at 3 a.m. with 2 guys in dark clothes. I thought it was odd he didn't check in under his name. just nodded and walked straight in. Defense attorneys challenged her memory. "You're saying you remembered something from years ago, just like that?" Green's reply hit with force. "I've worked 100 graveyard shifts. But that night, I remember the tension in the air. You don't forget that." Next up was a forensic lab technician, Marcus Deller, who explained how the fibers were analyzed and how the database match was conducted. He confirmed the lab found a high-confidence correlation between the collected fibers and the lining of the limited edition jacket Diddy was photographed wearing that month. "It's not like matching a fingerprint," he admitted, "but it's strong circumstantial evidence when paired with arrest." But the most impactful testimony of the day came from Vanessa Cruz, a friend of Cassie's who'd never spoken publicly about the case before. Vanessa had received a call from Cassie around 4 a.m. on the night in question. She was crying. She couldn't breathe. She didn't say what happened, just that she needed to get out of there. Vanessa's call records backed this up, time-stamped at 4:07 a.m., the exact window that matched the digital evidence from the hotel. When asked why she never came forward earlier, Cruz got quiet.
"I was scared," she said.
Everyone was scared. You don't go up against someone like him. You just don't. Her voice cracked, but she didn't break. This testimony wasn't just about reinforcing timelines. It was about humanizing the impact of the night. Cruz's words gave weight to the data. They made the story real. By the end of her testimony, 2 jurors appeared visibly shaken. Diddy's legal team looked gutted. And the prosecution? They had managed to do what few thought possible in a civil trial against a cultural giant. They made the data human, and the truth impossible to ignore. When court reconvened the next day, all eyes weren't on Diddy. They were on Cassie Ventura. She entered the courtroom quietly, dressed in a dark navy suit, no makeup, no entourage. Just her and her attorneys. The contrast from the day before, when Diddy collapsed under the weight of the evidence, was striking. Where he had buckled, she stood composed. There was no dramatic outburst, no tears, no grandstanding. But when Cassie spoke outside the courthouse later that afternoon, her voice carried more than emotion. It carried conviction. She didn't step up to the microphones for a photo op. Her lawyers had advised her not to speak at all. But she did. "I didn't come here for revenge," she said, looking directly into the cluster of cameras. "I came here because the truth matters. Not just my truth, the truth." She paused. The crowd outside the courthouse was silent. "For years, I was told to stay quiet. That no one would believe me. That speaking out would ruin me. And for a long time, I believed that. But now, with what came out in court, I know I made the right choice." Cassie didn't name Diddy once. She didn't need to. Her statement was brief, just under 3 minutes, but it hit hard. Not because she tried to sway the media or make herself the focus, but because she didn't. She redirected attention to the broader issue. "This isn't just about me," she said. "This is about the systems that protect power and silence survivors. It's about the people who are watching this trial right now, wondering if they're next, or if they'll ever be heard." Her words sparked a wave of reaction, almost instantly. Social media lit up. #JusticeForCassie trended again within the hour. Fellow artists reposted her clip, praising her composure and courage. Survivor advocacy groups called her statement a powerful moment of quiet leadership. Cassie didn't smile during her statement. She didn't pose for cameras. She didn't linger. She spoke. She thanked her legal team. She turned around and walked away. Inside the courtroom, her words weren't entered into the record. But their impact? Undeniable. Cassie had gone from plaintiff to symbol, not of victimhood, but of quiet, unshakable resistance.